All right, everybody, here we go with the rest of the notes for Chapter 4. We're going to pick up in this video with Section 3 of your notes. Talking about satellite radio very quickly, in November of 2001, Sirius and XM Radio began offering satellite radio service. The two companies merged in 2008 so that, by and large, Sirius XM is pretty much got the monopoly on satellite radio at this point. The programming on satellite radio is rather niche-oriented. It caters to very small demographics where you can find some pretty unique formats on satellite radio that will focus perhaps on just a certain decade of music, or it will focus on not just sports, but perhaps a certain type of sport, like just football or just baseball or something like that. Satellite radio tends to offer several different types of channels in order to appeal to those that want a specific type of content. Comedy also very popular with satellite radio, and certain segments of the talk audience are also segmented. As of 2014, 14% of smartphone usage was for music listening. The challenge for music-based internet listening services, they have to pay fees to the Copyright Royalty Board, or the CRB, for performance rights for music. So when you pull up an online stream and you're listening to a particular station that is streaming different types of music, those fees have to be paid in order to be able to have the performance rights for the music. It's very similar to how radio stations pay different music licensing groups. But in addition to that, those that stream have to pay an additional fee in order to be able to have the rights to air the music that you hear. The appeal is that you have genre-specific programming. Some of the services allow for listeners to build stations around favorite artists and songs and genres, especially if you're using services like Pandora or Spotify, that it will allow you to choose things based on a certain type of music, based on your favorite artist, based on the topic, those sorts of things. Also, the ability to hear traditional and non-traditional radio stations both locally and around the world. It's an important thing to note with local radio in that perhaps if you have a favorite station that you can't tune in fairly well on your traditional radio, you might be able to listen through its online stream or through its app on your phone or through another app that aggregates a bunch of different stations to be able to get you to get to your favorite local content. But if you want to step outside of Raleigh or Greensboro or Fayetteville, you can pull up stations from London or from Tokyo or from wherever else if they are providing a stream, or you can pull up content that doesn't necessarily tie itself to a particular city. The world's your oyster as far as what sort of content that you can provide, even much more eclectic than what you might be able to get on satellite radio. Now, in talking about radio station organization, there's a good chart in your textbook that kind of lists the pecking order, if you will. We'll go over some of the main jobs that you can see at a radio station and briefly explain what they do. First off, you have the regional market manager. This person oversees the managers for the different radio stations in the different cities, also conforms local policies to that of the corporate ownership. From there, you have an operations manager. That person oversees the program directors for each station. And the program directors tend to have an overall responsibility for the sound of the station. Just very quickly back to operations managers. They also tend to oversee that everything is running smoothly in terms of, if there's any problems with broadcasting and that sort of thing. If they notice that something is amiss in the studio or something doesn't sound right on the air, they tend to be the first responders before engineering gets involved. And if it's something that's more of an issue with staff not doing what they're supposed to do, the operations manager tends to be the one that is responsible for getting people in line. Now back to the program director. Under the program director is generally going to be these people: the music director and the news director. The music director develops and implements the music formats of the station, and the news director handles the logistics of news and public affairs coverage. And then the program director will take everything that's happening on the station in consultation with the music director and the news director, and kind of put together the program clock or the program wheel, how things will sound from hour to hour, and decide the ways that all of the content is going to be presented. The director of sales oversees sales personnel. This could be broken up into local and national sales. You may have different specialties in sales as well, where people perhaps are in charge of overseeing different types of industries that may advertise with the station. Account executives are the formal name for salespeople. They're the ones that sell the commercial ad time to the advertisers. Underwriting managers at non-commercial stations would be the equivalent of the sales and the account executives. They're the ones that oversee sponsorship solicitation. And the main difference between underwriting and advertising, when you're soliciting for underwriting at a non-commercial radio station, the main thing there is that underwriting announcements cannot include any sort of a call to action to say, make sure you stop by, or you got to come to this specific sale. They also can't mention things like prices. They also cannot do any superlatives like, we've got the best blah, 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 making claims and that sort of thing. Underwriting announcements are very matter of fact, basically saying, hey, we're this business, we're located here, we sell these sorts of products, here's our phone number, here's our website. So really, underwriting is more businesses that are kind of donating to the operation of a radio station, and in exchange they get those acknowledgments on the air. Promotion and marketing manager is the person that oversees general image and branding for stations, including contests, concerts, remote broadcasts, that sort of thing. Anything where you see the radio station out and about in public, it's usually the result of the work of that particular person. The webmaster oversees websites and social media, including client banner ad placement and design. The engineering department keeps stations on the air logistically. They keep control of everything that's going on in the racks, the way that the radio console works, making sure it's doing what it's supposed to do, that physically everything's wired up correctly, that the signal is getting from the studio to the transmitter site and going out the air the way that it's supposed to. It's keeping track of all that sort of stuff. And in the past several years, engineering has also incorporated any sort of computer type of issues, including IT, information technology. The business manager maintains the station's financial operations, will include different sorts of accounting procedures, may also involve sorts of human resources, HR, putting in place different policies for staff to follow, that sort of thing. Traffic. Now, this is not what we're thinking of, when you turn on the radio in the morning and the person comes on and says that Interstate 40 is backed up and there's an accident and you need to avoid the highway. What we're talking about here with traffic is the process of making sure that commercials are being scheduled, that they're input into the system, making sure that they all run properly. And after the fact, traffic will usually be the folks that also generate the billing and does that in consultation with the business manager. Now, traditionally, the route up to the corporate ladder environment within the management of radio stations is going to start in sales. And that's because radio is a business. And if you're proven to be able to generate income for a radio station, you're more and more likely going to get into upper management in radio. There have been folks from the operations side and the programming side that have done it as well, if they've been able to build huge audiences that can sell. But generally, it's the people that have the sales mindset by and large that are the ones that tend to get higher and higher in radio management. Getting a job in radio. Consolidation in radio has caused radio employment to drop. There are less and less employees that are at a typical radio station because of consolidation and also because of technology. Computers have made it so that you don't necessarily need as many people to work at a radio station as you once did. Computer automation has made it so that you don't necessarily have to have someone in the studio 24 hours a day, because the computer is handling all the placement of the songs and the advertising and all that sort of thing. Voice tracking is a method in which, using modern technology, you can record an entire air shift and have those voice tracks inserted into appropriate places within a radio show. Now, one of the secrets here is that you may find that there are certain jocks that will be able to broadcast and run shows for radio stations in different cities. Those of you that are familiar with B93.9 in Raleigh, they have a personality named Carson. And for a while, Carson worked at the country music station in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And when she was there, she would do a live radio show for the Pittsburgh country music station, but then she would also voice track for the country music station in Indianapolis. And this sort of thing happens very, very often, especially with the larger radio groups. Opportunities for women and for members of ethnic minorities have been increasing, still not quite to where they probably should be, but we are seeing more and more females, more minorities that are getting prominent jobs in radio. For people looking to start out in radio, smaller community stations are more likely to hire people with limited experience for on-air work. So you're not going to get your first job in New York or Chicago and Los Angeles. You're going to find it at the small station in Sanford or in Burlington or in Benson, Smithfield, and maybe even smaller stations in places like Fayetteville and Raleigh and Greensboro. Being able to talk knowledgeably about a variety of subjects can improve one's chances of getting past the front door. If you've got the gift of gab, and you're able to string a sentence together without stumbling over your words quite a bit, and are able to keep things moving in the studio, especially if you have to produce a live show, your ability to think quickly, your ability to be relevant and conversational is going to help you in the on-air side of things. And even in the sales side, the ability to be able to relate to different people and talk about different types of subjects that other people might be interested in as you're networking, getting to know different business owners and then talking to them about the opportunities in advertising is going to help you there as well. As far as salaries go, well, unless you're the next Rush Limbaugh or Howard Stern, you're probably not going to make a ton of money working in the on-air studio or in the production studio in radio, the better paying jobs tend to be in sales. Now, that's going to do it for the notes for Chapter 4. As always, make sure you finish up those notes and the study questions. Submit those in to me either through Blackboard or through email. And make sure you participate in the Blackboard discussion board for the chapter as well. Get involved with the conversation online. As always, make sure you're watching Cougar Mail and Blackboard for any updates and changes to things that are going on. And we'll see you around online.